This podcast is brought to you by Steede Motor Group, Claregalway. For your personalised vehicle shopping experience, find out more at steedemotorgroup.ie.
So delighted now to be joined by Jonathan Higgins of Galway FM and Galway under-16 football coach James Mannion, just to look back at the action over the weekend in the intermediate and senior football championships, the opening round of the intermediate championship, and then in the senior championship we had round 2 over the weekend as well. But before we do that, James, coming to you first, you're obviously with the Galway under-16s this year, and a competition you were involved in this year was the Ted Webb, and it's probably been something that maybe gets slightly lost now since minors went to under-17s.
Yeah, absolutely. It's it's a great competition. It's a great development competition. And you might lose your couple of strong players in it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter too much, because the whole point of it is getting as many young lads in the Galway jersey as possible. So the likes of, say, a Brian O'Malley, a Tiernan Prow, Danny Hughes, who would have been on our under-16 panel, when they were with the minors, we got to get other lads into Galway jerseys. So it was great. But there is, since that change of the age group down to under-17, there's a massive difference now between that minor and so on. You see these young lads now are that year younger, and it counts for so much at that age.
With the development now of players coming through from under-16, do you think it's harder for players to come through at that age now, or more players are starting to come through?
I think it's harder. I think there's probably a level of expectation and pressure put on these young lads that year earlier than there previously would have been. So if you think about it, you would have had a lad shooting the lights out for minor. He could have been 17. Now a lad could be shooting the lights out for minor. He might only just be turned 16. And at that kind of development age group, it's massive. Because look at young lads, young girls that age, they have so much more going on in life. That extra pressure coming from adults, it doesn't always help. But I do think the development squads are a fantastic thing. And I think it's really feeding in well to that under-17 and onto the under-20. I probably worry a little bit about that under-20 to the senior gap. But look, there's powers that be that know an awful lot more.
The fairly star-studded management team you're involved with.
It is. I think there's a few All-Irelands between us now. But I know it's great now. Like, Damien Dowd there, he was managing Anna Down last year, Micheál Brady from Dunmore, and of course you have Jeff Fallon and Derek Savage. It's a great learning opportunity for me to be able to work with lads like that who would have done such fantastic things in the past and continue to do fantastic things. And whatever about the young lads, learning off them. I'm learning off them every weekend. I meet them as well. So it's great. It's really enjoyable.
And just before we get into the senior and intermediate games, just as a whole so far, Jonathan, what have you made of the senior championship to start with?
It's been I suppose a slow burner, the truth being told. Coming into this, we're probably looking back to last year's championship, and that's the most one in recent memory. And you think about last year, it was, albeit the All-Ireland final didn't go our way, there was such a renaissance in Galway football. There was such a feel-good factor. I just remember the feeling that you were leaving Croker after the Armagh game, and it just went on a crest of a wave where that All-Ireland final run went maybe not out of no place, but it came maybe unexpected to a lot of people. And a lot of people got back on the Galway bandwagon that might have necessarily been there in recent years through COVID, and then maybe just Galway being a little bit off the top table, say. And then that reflected onto an absolutely exceptional club championship last year. Like, it was one of the best in recent memory. I think we were expecting the same again, and I don't know if it's multiple factors, as maybe there's still kind of a good bit of uncertainty or players away. So many high-profile players have gone stateside, for example. So many players rightfully taking a break, and this championship, it's maybe felt like it's come a little bit out of the blue, a little bit kind of on top of us before we realised. And I think you probably add in as well, maybe the weather conditions for a lot of the games haven't been too hectic either. So it's been a slow burner, but I guess that is the nature of the way the championship is set up with the kind of group stages. And, there is fairly good, everyone used to talk about the All-Ireland Football Championship and the group stages and lack of jeopardy and whatnot. It's probably a similar type of conversations that are taking place right now in terms of, I think the big hitters are all missing pretty high-profile players, or they're slowly getting back. And you probably don't want to be hitting form too early in the day either. So there's a little bit of that. Probably the way the league campaign goes as well, the fact that that goes on without so many, the league teams compared to the championship teams, there's a good bit of variation in them, and there's a good bit of moving parts. So it's just been probably maybe not as exciting as we probably expected to date, but it's still a very competitive championship at that rate as well. And you're looking at 3 or 4 teams that have real tangible opportunity of winning Frank Fox. And I think when we get in the business end, I think every match day, I think you probably have the worst 2 over in a way, because you look at, say, Group 3, for instance, with Tuam now after losing at the weekend. They didn't play the first day out. That's already, they're in trouble. They're going to be fighting for spots. There's so many teams that are now probably going to be, it's got that stage now where it's, it's get off the pot or do your business now, in that type of way. It's going to get in the business end now. So hopefully it'll pick up a bit, but it has been a little bit of a slow burner to date, I think.
Just Jonathan, you mentioned there 3 or 4 teams. Is it safe to say already that Cuilinn, Cuilinn, Maigh, and Salthill-Knocknacarra are just a step ahead of everyone so far?
I think you could have said that safely prior to a ball being thrown in.
And do you still think that?
Yeah, the only one that has been a little bit disappointing to date would be Salthill. Obviously, Rob Finnerty as well. How bad is that injury? If he's still haven't seen a lot of John Maher. They're probably maybe the ones that have tailed away ever so slightly from that pack. I haven't seen a lot of Montbellion, but obviously, like, such an inspiration getting Mike Daly back at the weekend. The roar, I believe, that he got when he came on and got a point was nearly cheered as loudly as when the won Frank Fox a couple of years back. So you're probably looking at Cuilinn look impressive without still missing a few. They look well drilled. And Kevin Johnson is getting his DNA on the team a little bit more now after second year in charge. They would have been so disappointed with last year. I actually tipped them last year. They were flying it in the league. They were very unlucky, I thought, last year, but they're losing the likes of Ciara Malloy and Lynn Silcone as well. They're both back now also. Obviously, Ian Burke is going to be a big loss for them, but they still have firepower, and you can see little aspects in their game, like even something simple like it's not rocket science, but there's this very dangerous technique wherever a cornerback or anyone in the backs wins a one-on-one ball. They've literally just run 30, 40 yards up the upside in the pitch. You can see people that have won a turnover in their own full back line, all of a sudden, 20 seconds later, they're in the full forward line. It seems to be a tactic. They're to develop something to keep an eye on, and they do have a lot of pace, a lot of runners from deep. Maybe it's slightly different to the type of football that we would have seen and would have been so used to in the kind of Cuilinn Academy over the years. He's probably put a little bit of a shape on it, but it is highly effective when you look at the quality players that they have in their squad. I think you look at Cuilinn as well, like even from the victory at the weekend there now, what is it, Sean Kelly, Ger Davern and Peter Cook, with 3 players to come back in. They were nowhere near the best, but they still look very dangerous. Galler looks like he's a point to prove. He was probably the difference in getting them over the line in the second half. Desi got 1-5. Conor Corcoran has just seemed to be getting better and better. You'll see him in maroon before long. Got a fantastic point, but the amount of turnovers that he got, and even at the death, the turnovers he got, they're so stacked in defence as well. Neil Mackay is back. He's a huge, huge player, a man marker. Johnny Maloney, you touched on the last time as well, a serious addition, and one of these players where my first real time to see him in the flesh, but he's such a line breaker in terms of he's running, he's punch passing, he's kick passing, he just breaks lines continuously. He's such a dangerous player, fits right into their system. And if you want to give one example of how they're kind of settling in, it's Sean O'Connor, the player coming up from the minor, their title last year. He's on the end of the, I think I call it in the commentary, Project DNA, Mark Cullen goal, where it's a hand pass through, weave in, weave out, quick as the hands, and he bats it in. And the fact that, you have a player like that settling in is a big addition. And obviously the 3 players are huge. Like Davern was so effective. I'm not sure about Micheál O'Reilly, how far off he is as well. He was such an effective player for them last year. Look what he did to John Daly in the game against Montbellier. But Devon is such literally a huge addition. Cook is massive for them, and obviously Sean Kelly, like we saw him do. I'm not sure how many sad lunatics were watching the Boston County final on Sunday night. I was one of those weirdos with no life watching it, but he was quite by his standards there, but still made a bust to get a goal that looked like it was a winning goal. Donegal caught them in, but like what addition he is going to be to them as well, and they're dangerous. So yeah, but really long-winded answer. You are looking at those. Salthill probably the one that probably have the most to show in terms of continuing last season form, but if they get players back, they'll still be very dangerous.
And James, as Jonathan is touching on there, Maigh Cuilinn, it's 2 from 2, got over the line the last day, but you're already thinking with these players to come back, and some of those players had such long years that it's nearly ideal, because this management team and the group are kind of able to manage their run now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big thing with Maigh Cuilinn is that there seems to be a hunger with them the whole time. You know, they seem like they know their jobs, they know what they're doing, they know what they're about, and they know what they want. And that's so important. And like the likes of Johnny Maloney brings such energy to that group as well, that fresh face, and obviously a great footballer. We played them in a Division 2 league game down in Monavea, and I ended up picking him up for a while, and just I was blown away his strength, the way he read the game, unbelievable. So when you add in your Sean Kelly, your Peter Cook, Davern, all these other boys come back in, it's like new players again. And with that comes more energy, and it's an awful lot easier to manage your run when you have that kind of fresh energy coming in throughout.
How important is it for those players to get a break as well?
Oh, massively important. Like so many of these lads would have been on the road for so long, you know. And I think that management team there, Don, Kieran Murphy, Sheridan, like they know how to manage players. And I'm sure they've been giving them breaks throughout the league. Individuals, if they need breaks, they'll give them the breaks. They'll manage these players really well. So I've no doubt that, you know, their training is tailored, and by the time they come out of this group stage, they're going to be fresh, and they're going to be full energy, and they're going to be driving it on.
Even Jonathan, you were touching on there, like they got over James's by 6 points at the weekend. The big difference between Maigh Cuilinn and other teams in the county really seems to be people will often throw a sheep shot and say transfers and all this and that, but like it's been, if you look at it, every year they've been able to get a minor through. You talked about Conor Corcoran the last day. He was the smallest man on the pitch, and he was going up against Johnny Duane the last day at stages. Even Michael Mann came through last year, but there seems to be a minor footballer coming through and making a difference for Maigh Cuilinn every year.
Yeah, we actually touched on that in the commentary as well. I think it is vitally important that even as a team as successful as Maigh Cuilinn, they're like, what are they going for, 3 and 4? Like it is so important that they refresh it, and obviously look the players coming in, and look, Maloney's a huge addition, and look, it's just the geography of modern Ireland at the moment is aiding them, and then look, they're able to make advantage. And why wouldn't you want to join that ever successful team? Like sort of team that once, if they get out of Galway, they're already All Ireland contenders in my mind. I think an All Ireland final at the very least isn't a million miles away. I think they'll still be disappointed last year how they managed that game against Glen. They didn't really get a good reflection or a showing that reflected their quality. Glen are probably maybe a bit more down the road in terms of experience, but it is like, and you saw even power and goal, like he's added 10-15 yards to his kick out from last year. Maybe that was a potential area of improvement last year, and they are a team that if they get his kick out a bit more to their I suppose level that they desire, they will be able to do a lot more set plays off that. They're such a well-coached side, extremely well-coached. A joy to watch. There's so many aspects of the game, and that basketball-type goal that they continuously get, that isn't by fluke. That's, you know, that they're planned very closely, and Don is a genius like that. What he's been able to do and keep that motivation going in the players and in the squad to keep on coming back. That isn't easy. It's particularly in the modern game. that's not an easy feat. Strong management set up there as well. Look at the coaching staff all the way right through. It's CVs of glitter all around, but keeping the freshness there. And like you talk about those players to come back. Obviously, they will get in the team because of the level the players at. But like, it's going to be big ask to decide who are the three to make way, or if they are to make way, because there's question marks there. Every player is
a county player on the bench for them the way it's going. Like
it is getting to that. It is getting to that stage. Yeah, like they are getting that stacked. And like it was maybe a little bit quieter the last day, but like the first day out, Niall Walsh was exceptional. Gave him that focal point a little bit closer to the goal. Desi obviously is such at club level. It's hard to find. Maybe himself and Barry McHugh have been the standout club players in the last 5 or 6 years. They've been exceptional. And like when you saw Desi get the ball 4 minutes in, once he turned his man, you think that's it. It's goal here. There's not even an element of doubt in it. So the art stacked, and it's probably not too far away the way things are going. And they keep, no doubt they'll have a lot more underage players as well. And that successful minor team also was a few to come from that as well, and the Cox brothers and whatnot as well. So yeah, you're probably not too far away. An Galway underage player of some level on the bench for them, but yeah, no, they'll be disappointed. I think it is important to note that James, who with the greatest respect I thought were all over the shop last year, and probably a team that I expected to go down. They just kept it together at the right time. But my God, under Barry Downey, they're very well drilled. I was very impressed with them, and they hit a purple patch just after half time. They got scores in quick succession, brought on Concannon with a bit more direct, caused a lot of problems. They'll be disappointed with the nature of the goal and the fact that, they got cut open after they were just getting momentum. Now, I know they did get a goal back themselves with O'Neill just a couple of minutes later, but it killed the little bit of momentum that they'd built up. But that was my first time seeing them this year, and they're quite well drilled, and they're going to be a dangerous outfit. They're strong down the middle. Duane, it looks rock solid. Obviously, Paul Conroy in the middle field, Sam O'Neill, Jack O'Neill was dangerous as well. And then inside, they have firepower there as well. So they've got things back on track, and they're going to be a dangerous side also over the course of the campaign.
That was the really important thing for St. James's as well, James. Like, it was to not get a hammering here against Cuilinn, to remain competitive and stay in the game. Like, they'll have to take some positives away from that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Barry Downey going in there, the very first thing he would have done would have been trying to change the environment and create an environment where lads really wanted to be a part of. And I think you can see that in how well coached they are, how well structured they seem on the pitch. They all seem to have bought into what Barry's doing. And they've bought into the environment, and like there's such talent on that pitch from St. James's point of view. Conroy Duane, of course, but Sam O'Neill is really somebody who's stepping up massively and looking like something special there with the Galway under-20s this year. So yeah, they would have gone in and they would have said, look, let's keep it tight and let's try and keep solid at the back. But they also knew they had the talent there to do a bit of damage, and you could see Conroy went in full forward a couple of times, and ball was popped into him. He grabbed it, laid it off. They used players to their strength, and it really kept them in the game. And look, when you keep in a game in Pearse Stadium, mad weather, anything can happen on days like that.
Yeah, and they really feel like the next 3 games are probably 3 winnable games. They'll feel in that camp, so they'll really be aiming, I'd say, for second spot. Just on another team, 2 from 2. Milltown, James, they probably targeted the first 2 games to be on 4 points now, and that's where they are.
Yeah, definitely. Like that second spot is really up for grabs. Like, you're looking, St. James is there and down, and Milltown seem to be in the driving spot there now with the 4 points on the board. But again, Milltown are a really solid team, full of energy. They have a nice blend of experience, with the likes of Cathal Blake, Michael Martin, but they also have the likes of the Liam Costello's, Niall Costello, good young footballers with loads of energy, and Milltown are the type of team that always play on the front foot, so they definitely would have looked at those couple of games in Spiddle this weekend and said, let's go and get those points. Especially with, Spiddle didn't have the best Division 2 campaign this year. They lost an awful lot of players, missing Liam O'Cally and Finian O'Lee, like 2 massive losses. So definitely Milltown would have been targeting that game for 2 points.
It definitely is, though, James. You have to say that the next 3 games now coming up are the tougher games down the group. Like it's going up a notch for Milltown now.
Absolutely, but those first 2 games, to pick up those 4 points, you don't realise how invaluable that is for a group to get that momentum, to get that feel-good factor. And, that breeds more motivation and that breeds confidence. And when you have confidence, the next 2 weeks of training fly, and everybody's buzzing to go train and everybody's buzzing to put in the work. And, like Jared Jennings there, he won't be leaving stones unturned going into these games. He's going to have a good plan in place for everybody that they're playing in the last 3 games, see how many points they can get out of that. And in reality, call a spade, they're looking for spot 2. Like, my Cuilinn are going to wrap up spot 1. If everybody's a realist, they're going to wrap up spot 1. So they really need to get at least 2 wins there and hold on to Group 2, or hold on to spot 2 in that Group 1.
The other game in that Group 1, Jonathan, you were at it over the weekend on Sunday covering Down and Letchmore, and it's fair to say that got feisty enough.
It is, but firstly, 4 points were safe now, so that's job done. It was a game that it was very, how do I say this politically? It was very hard not to get enraged watching it. A game that started off to be quite a competitive affair. Maybe the referee didn't get the control on the game that he should have desired and maybe held it up a bit too longer for a couple of instants, but there's no way putting this up. And Niven and Lettermore completely lost their heads and were so over the top in a lot of their tackles. It was infuriating to watch at times. They seemed to settle back down towards the end then as well. And when they actually did play football, they obviously showed how much of a dangerous team that they are. But there was a while there they completely and utterly lost their heads. And this was while Down were down to 14 players as well. The most oldest thing in football we were taught is when the opposition is down a player, that's when you have to be more sensible, because the referee is always looking to balance things out. It's only human nature. And they seemed to just, when the game was gone a little bit away from them, they lost their heads in some of the challenges that were going in, and there was just messing one off the ball on both sides then as well, pulling, dragging, just horrible stuff. Like it was it was like watching a bad Tyrone club game at times. That sort of way. It was just nasty. It wasn't football, and it just spoiled what was so many moments of good football at times. And Lettermore have some fine, talented forwards as well, and they just weren't best served in getting football into them. And they didn't. I don't think they maximised the quality that they have on the pitch, and it was frustrating because, look, Down, we all know how they've had their, I suppose, struggles recently as well in terms of issues off the pitch. They seem to have got the band back together now, and Alan Glynn, I think every game you see a little bit more of his kind of stardust on the side, and it seems to be, from the outside looking in, he seems to have calmed things down a bit, and they're all pulling in the one direction now, which is great to see. And look, they're so physically strong down the middle, like all the way from James Healy. The Ryan Ford was brilliant at full back. Sheridan was probably, prior to his sending off, was solid as well, got forward a lot. The Kilcummins is in the middle of the pitch. I know one of them has
Donny's injury serious.
It didn't look great now because he was down holding his ankle, and he's a big man and he was belting the floor in frustration. So the boot came off straight away on the sideline. He was taken up pretty quickly, and you always worry when you see a big player like that go down, because like the two of them, they're built like shithouses, the pair of them. They're big apes of men, and to see someone go down is a little bit concerning, and obviously that will have a big impact. But they're so strong. Even Frankie Burke is such an experienced club player, and Comer, like, what can you say? I think was it 22 seconds in the first half, 11 in the second half after the throw-ins that he scored the goal. Sean Andy O'Callaghan himself they knocked 7 lumps of muck out of each other, but it was great to see afterwards, even though they bet the bejesus out of each other, straight away shaking hands with each other afterwards. But there was a couple of moments of nastiness. I don't know if there was a kind of a stamp before half time as well that went unpunished, and it just bubbled over and it lost control. And then when Dylan Shoki got the goal at the end, and you thought, oh, if they just had another couple of minutes, they might have, gone a bit closer. They might have had a better showing. I'd be so frustrated from a Neva and a Lettermore perspective watching it, because if they'd kept the heads a little bit more and kept composed, there was something to get out of that game. But they'll be furious, and the way that group is set up now, that's a big disappointment. They're no points from 2. They're probably looking in that mini group with on Spidale. Probably James has shown that they have a little bit a higher ceiling to get forward a bit more on that. Obviously, on a down, bad result first day out, but now they're back on track and they look dangerous. And Milltown with 4 points already, and that you're already looking the wrong way there. But they do have a lot of talented forwards in particular. If they could just maybe work on the training ground a bit more, just to get a bit more quality service into them, because those forwards will do damage given ample ball.
Yeah, so the way that group's shaping up, you have Mike Cuilinn in top spot on 4, Milltown in second on 4, then James is in third on 2, and down on 2, and then bottom on 0 points you have Lettermore and Spittle. So yeah, it's beginning to take a bit of shape there, but that push for second spot is going to be huge. Just on to Group B then. It's hard to know with Cuilinn, James. There was such a statement of intent against Salthill in the first round, but it did seem like they made hard work of getting over the line against Cuilinn.
Yeah, and look, I hate to throw excuses out there, but I think conditions very poor out in Pearse Stadium certainly didn't help. And Cuilinn are a good, solid senior team, well organised, some big players there. And I wasn't overly surprised to see this being a tight game. I think Cuilinn got a good boost there with Mike Farrer going back in with them, and he came on and kicked a lovely point. But they will be losing Jason Leonard next week. He's going travelling next Monday, and he's going to be a massive loss to them. So I think that it was really important to get those 2 points more than anything else. Not overly worry about performance, because in that group of 6, you've those 5 games. You keep building, get your 2 points. By the time you hit that quarter-final stage, that's when you need to be playing an awful lot of good football. But I do think they're slowly coming around. You can see Kevin's handprints becoming more apparent on them now as well.
You worked with Kevin. What does he bring?
Yeah, I worked with Kevin. I was blessed to have worked with him up in Strand there 2 years back. He brings an unbelievable amount of organisation, and the man doesn't think 1 step ahead or 2 steps ahead. He thinks 20 steps ahead. And he will be very clear on what he wants. Players will know exactly what's expected of them, and they will know their jobs inside and out. And you have to remember, he's been helped there as well by an unbelievable coach in Michael Comer. Mike is top quality, and of course you have Brian Silk there as well as a selector, and a link there with the intermediate. So it's a brilliant management team there, and I think you have a good management team. You have a very good playing pool. You're solidified there by the return of Liam Silk, Malloy, and you're getting in these young players. The likes of Jack McCabe is stepping up, and the likes of, say, a Rory Donlan, who's still played intermediate this weekend, but he played an awful lot of Division 1 league football for them and impressed. So they have everything they need to be pushing later on in the year. And I think
the loss now of Ian Burke, and you talk about Jason Leonard, does it bring them back into the pack now a bit?
It certainly doesn't help, and I think Ian is a big loss, but I think the biggest loss is going to be Jason Leonard. I think Jason's been one of the most consistent club footballers in Galway for a long time. But I do think, the if they can get Martin Farrer back flying again, I know he's been having a little bit of issue with his hamstrings. You have Mike Farrer back in there now leading as well. You still have Dylan Canny there. We have to remember he was involved with the Galway senior panel not too long ago, and he's quality. So I think it's time for the likes of of Dylan and Dara Silk especially, who's been around the block for a long time, to really stand up, and it's a really good opportunity for them to lay claim to a leader spot in that Corofin forward line now without Ian and Jason there.
Plenty of positives for Cuilinn to take too, going toe to toe with Corofin at the weekend, and they'll probably have a few regrets too, but it's definitely something they can build on. Jonathan, I wasn't actually able to get to games over the weekend, so I was following most of them up on Twitter, and you were going through the Barna game, I think it was, and just reading one of your tweets, you couldn't get over how this game ended in a draw.
No, I think Barna would still be scratching their head really. Talking about the championship not being up to maybe the expectations that we would desire so far, but this was an awful game of football, lads. It was it was a hard watch. Look, we've seen enough of Uachtarard under Alan Murphy to know the way they set up. It's a very coached, it's a very structured, it's a very disciplined setup. And then Barna seemed to decide that the best approach was trying to mirror that. So you had just the old rugby union attack versus defence, a lot of lateral hand passing. And I'm not one of these critics that goes, "Oh, the game is ruined, we need to change the structure of the game." By and large, I'm certainly not like that. I'm not one of these people that still think that, you know, the ball should be driven up and it's 60-20. Far from it. But this was, even by the most kind of passionate football supporter, would struggle to this. This was a hard watch. It was Uachtarard got an early start. Matthew Tierney got 1-1. He was back from penalties straight away. Then a couple of frees. Barna struggled to get going. Yes, it was weather conditions were just rank, and particularly for this game, you might have had a bit of wind that had an impact on the opening game, the Corofin game. But for this game, the sideways rain came in off Salthill. It was horrible. I didn't envy any of the players been out there underneath it, and it made playing conditions just, you know, absolutely havoc. And the way teams are set up in that, and you had this perfect kind of cluster storm of just the perfect storm of every condition to make the game as unpleasurable as possible. Uachtarard were solid. Uachtarard will be scratching themselves, saying, "How did we not see this game out?" I think it was
a bit of a concern now, because the Calstrang game, they conceded 3 goals dead on and hung on, and didn't see out the Barna game as well.
Yes, and I refer to my earlier point, the way they're set up. I think that makes it even more puzzling and staggering and frustrated. I think you can put up with the kind of the zonal defence that they set up if you are seeing things out and you are seeing the rewards. I think it's, no matter what the sport is, if you are, like, don't get me wrong, everyone's entitled to set up the way they want, and fair play to them, off they go. I'm not sure maybe if it's getting the most effective, or they definitely need to tweak it a bit. They did show for large periods how they are, you know, running on the counter, getting forward a bit quickly as well, and getting bodies up the pitch. But by and large, it's lose the ball, it's track back and sit in, and you have your 2 lines and then your man markers inside. But I think when you are playing anything like that, whether it's Jose Mourinho in football and soccer or whatever, if you are, or Davy Fitz in hurling, for example, if you are going to those tactics of kind of rushing everyone back and going to that zone defence, if you're not getting the rewards for it, I think it's a lot harder to sell. I think, you know, if you are maybe going all out attacking, I think it's an easier sell if you're not getting the results. And like you are right, that's 2 bad finishes to games that they didn't. Well, they saw the Carla Strand one, but that was an almighty scare, and they were so far ahead in that one. This one, they'll be struggling. Like, as I said, Barna didn't score. I think it was 19 minutes. Don't have my notes in front of me. I think it was 19 minutes in the second half before Cian Hernan got it. What was an absolute beauty of a score. He was sensational for them outside of the boot from front of the stand. But even still, they didn't really get going to injury time. I think the last couple of scores came in injury time. It was just staggering, and you're watching it. And then if there had been another attack or two, you're thinking they could have actually gone and won it. It was just staggering, and Uachtarard will be fuming. They didn't look best pleased coming off, understandably so. And even now, I haven't watched that game back yet, but you're watching it, you're thinking back on it, you're thinking back on the phases of play, you're thinking about how dominant they were. and to not see that out, that's really, really disappointing. And you know, you look at that group now; they're probably still in a pretty decent position, but there's a lot of, you know, you're looking at that group, and I'm just scanning it here. Salthill is the one to keep an eye on straight away, isn't it? 2 points, kind of in mid-table there. You'd expect that they will go on a run. Barna, it's who knows now for them really. That's 2 draws. They'll probably be disappointed not to get. I think they would have probably marked on the card that they would have liked. You know, bear in mind this is Barna coming in after winning the league, their first major piece of silverware. Pushing on, trying to get over Cuilinn was probably an important game for them. To only get a draw out of that, they're probably frustrated. Probably in the way they got the draw in the end, they'll be happy. You know, they've come from behind in both games, but they need to start getting wins on board. Because that middle clog, like you say, Cuilinn are obviously going to top that, you would imagine. Is Salthill going to finish second? Are they going to go on the run and get their players after that? You know, they're such evenly matched teams. I think that has the potential to be such an insanely close group, and that's probably one that could go down to the final ball or two in it. With the drama last year, but and down in the delayed game against Barna, they were on the opposite end of that. They didn't really have anything to play for that night in Tuam Park, but they're probably going to be in a scenario now where they might be the ones looking for that last point, because it's so competitive there. It's such a condensed group. You're already thinking about scoring it in that one almost, aren't you?
James, the very, I'd say, mixed emotions for Barna. Like, you get a draw in your opening game, but then really they get out of jail second time out. But like 2 draws, the way to start this. Cuilinn and Salthill to come for them. They'll definitely feel frustrated in certain aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're looking at that group. When they would have seen that group first, they would have been saying, right, Cuilinn and Salthill are going to be 2 really, really tough games. We need to target the other 3 here now and pick up 4 points at least, 4 if not 6. And you know, like, it's for a team that has won Division 1, and look, people say league is league, but winning a league can really set you up for the year if you go about it the right way. And I think for them, they would have felt that was going to be a real catalyst for them, that they were going to bring that form all the way through to you know, the championship. And yes, they got their couple of points, and they're not, by no means are they out of it, and they will definitely challenge, but it's definitely not as ideal a start as they would have liked. From an Oughterard point of view, like, they have to be very disappointed with, you know, that last 15-16 minutes, you know, where I don't believe they scored in the last 15-16 minutes, you know, and that's worrying. It's worrying not to be able to see out a game like that, and that Carla Strand scare is certainly going to put, you know, a few doubts in the back of the head. And Alan Murphy will have it on his to-do list now going into training this week, that we need to fix this, and we need to get this sorted, and we need to make sure that we're not in these positions come the last 10-15 minutes of a game where, you know, 1-2 in injury time like Barna got can rob them of a point that could be so important later on down the line.
And in the other game, Salthill doing enough against Cuilinn, James. When I talk about Mike Cuilinn managing the run, I'm still along the lines that Salthill can do the same, basically, because they got Robert Finnerty, they got game time back into him at the weekend, and they got through Cuilinn. They weren't impressive at stages, but they still done enough. And it feels like now with a week break, they can just be upping the intensity all the time in training.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Salthill management team there may be a little worry over John Maher coming off. He seemed to have gotten a very bad dead leg. And obviously Rob Finnerty going off with the back spasm. But you look at their depth. It's unbelievable. Like, they're bringing in Paddy Kitt as a sub, and Paddy would have played Galway under-21 a few years back and played an awful lot of senior club football. You have the likes of, you know, Cathal Sweeney really leading there from wing back. He was exceptional. And Evan Murphy is standing up now. He was playing midfield, really stood up and led. Like they have sensation depth that as they get these players back and get fitter and so on, it's only going to improve them. And look, Carla Strand went in with a game plan that they were going to really stick in the game and try and kill that first half, especially when they were against the breeze. And Salthill might be disappointed they didn't win by more, they didn't push on and kill Carla Strand. But I mean, you have to look and you have to say, you know, they didn't have Finnerty on for the full game. They didn't have Mara on for the full game. Tom Cuilinn was injured. He was tugged. He was doing warm-ups on the sideline, and he seemed to be holding a hamstring and pulled out during a warm-up on the sideline. And like, you add those players in on top of your Cathal Sweeney, who's starting to lead now, on top of your Evan Murphy, you know, on top of your Donny Hunt, who's flying in it as well. Like, it's a really formidable team. And for me, coming into this championship, I would have been tipping them massively based on what I saw them last year as well. And I think they were unlucky not to have won the county title last year. But they're definitely going to be there pushing Maigh, Cuilinn, Corofin, Montbellew. It's a really exciting kind of top four there.
Does Jack McCaffrey train on Southampton?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, you add a lad like that in, you know, the likes of the professionalism that he'd bring. You know, there's young lads there picking things up. There's old lads that'll be picking things up off him. The way he'd conduct himself in an exercise, in a drill, what he might say, it might be one or two words here or there, that can be massive. And I think John O'Mahony, Finian Hanley, Sean Armstrong there in the management team, they'll be absolutely thrilled to have him, and they'll be trying to use him as much as possible and get as much information and benefit out of having him training with them.
Yeah, no, there was certain rumours that he was going to be playing, but that was put to bed very quickly just before the Galstrand game. But yeah, that group's shaping up nicely as well. It's been Corofin on 4, Uachtaráin on 3. Then you have Cuilinn on a point, Salthill on 2, and you have Barna on 2, and then Galstrand sitting bottom on 0. Jonathan, just a point you touched on, like when you're talking here about Group C, if we just look at Montbellew getting over Michaels at the end, Michael started off obviously really well with the goal, but once they kind of scored the goal, you just got the sense Montbellew controlled this game. But I think for everyone, when they just seen that picture of Michael Daly and you talked about him getting on the scoreboard, it's just a massive boost to have him back, because he nearly forgot, like, he didn't play at all in last year's championship.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. And like, my Twitter blew. I just threw the picture up because I'm such a delighted for the lad to get back. He's such a long road and a glory. Like, John has got the national plaudits in recent years, but Michael is every bit as good as a footballer as him. Like, that dinner table with Val on the top of the table, like, what football and quality that there's there. But yeah, no, it's just a real feel-good story. And you know, like, my last memory of him is when a referee that a referee that I better not name, or I will start going on a rant, got absolutely shafted them, and then shafted them in a report afterwards. That's my last memory of him.
Yeah, I think that's the last game for them.
That's a long time ago. That's a lot of negative energy to have stored up. It's a lot of frustration. So it's certainly been a rocky road back, but delighted to see. How fit will he be over the course of the campaign is still a big ask, isn't it, really, to be out of football for that long. The year probably helped us the fact that this group, with the greatest respect, is quite weak. I think you're maybe looking at Claregalway, maybe will they push on a bit of momentum after the disaster on the first day out. The likes of Jack Lynn being back is such a big impact for them. But if they can get back in situ and back motoring, but even still, maybe Tuam, although Tuam are maybe there's a little bit of a pressure on them now, just given the fact I think you're always at a disadvantage in this group, in that group. The fact that there's a team that doesn't play first week out, I think it's important to get out in the first week and, you know, get that early bit of momentum. I think it's been a bit of a hindrance to them, and obviously the way that result has gone, it's opened that group up. But I think Montpellier Maigh are such significantly clear, and with 4 points already, you're already looking at those as, you know, finishing top of the group. Will that allow them maybe to have a bit more, I suppose, flexibility in terms of giving Mike maybe an extra minute or two here and there, where the pressure mightn't necessarily be on for them? That could be a benefit, but it's still a big ask. But a wonderful feel-good story. Leave all your tribalism aside from all your different rivals and whatnot, just for football in general. So to see such a quality player back again after such a long time out is a real feel-good story, and they're certainly flying it again. And in Montpellier Maigh, you have so many exceptional club players that have been at the top of the game for so long, whether it's James Foley, Billy Mannion. Where is he going to play for them now? He's been played everywhere in recent years. Barry McHugh, like, what a club player he is. Arguably one of the best free takers in the county still. What a weapon that is. And, you know, Matthew Barrett as well. Like, that's just a couple of players that I'm rhyming off the top of my head. But they're such a... got a couple of big players back as well, aside from Mike Daly as well. So they're in good. They are in that top table. And I suppose you already are seeing a pattern. If you look at the three group winners at the moment, I think you're looking at three of the contenders there straight away, and it's no coincidence that they are in that way. And I think this group could get exciting, but it won't get exciting for top spot.
Yeah, no, I think Michael will be really disappointed with the way they started.
Yeah, well, like two scores in a game is dismal. Really, there's no way of glossing that.
It really feels like it's vital for them to get Eamon Brannigan back for whenever he does return from America.
Yeah, and like I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I think the way he's gone to the New York side of town over there, hasn't he? So I think he has to wait till his team are knocked out. So it's not as straightforward as we've seen other players back already. Like, so like the likes of Matthew Tierney back, you'd imagine Sean Kelly and Jared Avenant will be back. I think I saw Jared back with his graduation there as well as that time of year. They're also, but I think if they have to wait a bit longer with them, that's a real struggle, and that's a real disappointment because that's such a feel-good factor after the victory, hard-fought victory, that be said, over Dunmore in round one, and to lose like that, and significantly as well to get the bit of clipping that they got on their score difference that's a real bad showing. Like, they mightn't have expected to win that, but surely they would expect it to get more than two scores in it, and that's a real kick in the teeth for them. But they are such an experienced outfit. Like, you remember last year they started the group very badly. Remember even that horror show against Milltown up in Corofin, and they still came out in up place and qualified out. But that's a big ask, and particularly in the group of five as well, it just makes it a little bit more difficult because are you looking at Tuam? What are they going to do now? Claregalway, are they going to keep this run going? They looked very impressive at the weekend, didn't they? I know, it was night and day compared to round one versus round two for them, but obviously getting the quality players back, and whatever you're about to say, Claregalway, they have an abundance of talent there. Maybe it hasn't been as consistent as they would have liked, but there's certainly talent there, a lot of young talent there that can be very, very dangerous.
Dunmore McHale's obviously had the bye in that group as well at the weekend, but James, Claregalway, I was really impressed with them at the weekend. Even the way Darren Hennessy worked his goal there, it was just really impressive. They moved it through the hands, but it was a mix of kicking as well. But just the way they were able to transition was really impressive. They get the setback. Kyle Long just misplaces the kick out and goes straight to Tuam and they get a goal. But like, they suffered setbacks in that game, but the way they were just able to keep responding and then steal it at the end was really impressive, because it's probably something we hadn't seen with this Claregalway group all together at once at senior level.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there would have been a question mark over the Claregalway team over the last few years about, when they do face these setbacks, how do they react? And it may have been always thrown out there, maybe they didn't have the leaders that could carry them through those tough times. But what I saw the last day, and is so impressive, was, the young Kyle Long had that setback, but you had the likes of Jack Glynn, so calm on the ball whenever he got it. He really calmed things down. Darren Hennessy calmed things down. You had, Jason Riley there playing wing back. He was immense bringing that ball up the pitch in his transition. And, it really set the tone then for Claregalway, that they said, right, this setback has happened, but we keep going and we keep driving on. And I think a man inside, Mark Rohan, Mark has been crippled with injury over the last few years, and I was thrilled to see him, going well. He was showing really hard. He had a really good battle with Luke Fallon up until Luke's black card after the yellow, and he got his red. But, Mark, now that he's fit, can really stand up and be a leader. You have Darren Hennessy there as a leader. You have Barry Goldrick as a leader. You have Jason Riley leading with action. You have Jack Lynn calming things down. And a young Luke O'Connor there at cornerback was sensational. He would have been cornerback with the Galway under-20s this year. And, I didn't expect him to make this step up at senior club level yet, but he was really impressive there at the weekend. And you just feel, they're young, they're enthusiastic, they're full of energy and intensity. Their intensity in the tackle was brilliant. And I think that probably shocked Tuam a little bit. But the fact that, they hit 3 points in injury time to go and win that game, like, it really hit home to me that this Claregalway team is starting to come of age. And it's a team that there's been an awful lot of work put in over the last few years. They may have had Donny Buckley in doing sessions here and there. And, there was an awful lot of effort put into this group, and they're starting to see the rewards of it now. And you have to remember, this is without Conor Campbell as well, who's a massive loss. So they're really, really going in the right direction now. And I was really impressed with them. And I'm really looking forward to seeing them push on and try and solidify that second spot in that Group 3.
Are they the team outside the top four that you believe can cause another upset this year along the way?
Yeah, I think so. I think in my head, you have your top four. You're in no particular order. You're Cuilinn, Kerr, Finn, Mount Bellew, Salthill, and I think there's probably, 2 or 3 teams there, the likes of Claregalway, Anna Down on their day, that can go and take out one of the top 4. I think they do have it in them, but they do need stars to align and so on. But I definitely think Claregalway are going in the right step, or going in the right direction. I think beating Tuam, a really good seasoned senior team, was a real signal of intent and showed that they are taking the right steps in that direction.
Tuam, Jonathan, as James mentioned there, Luke Fallon obviously gets a black card, gets yellow as well, but they'll be disappointed because they're kind of in control of that game as well.
Yeah, and I go back to the fact they didn't play first round. Their first game, they're out to set a marker, they're in their own backyard, etc., against a team with Claregalway that had such a bad first round. There was all the critics have been out, all the question marks were thrown against them. It felt like everything was in Tuam's disposal really to set down the marker, get off. You go back to their last game they would have played competitively, would have been the league final. They were brilliant for large periods, should have won the game, aside from a missed kick at the end of extra time. So it's a real kick in the teeth for them. It really is, because they were one of the teams that many people expected to be in that middle that kind of tier, just underneath the top 4, if you want to call it that way, of a team that would be very difficult to beat and be on their day, maybe not beat anyone, or certainly be highly competitive. It's just a bad start, and the fact that the way they finished it as well, I think it makes it even more annoying for them. It just puts a lot of unnecessary pressure, and I keep going back to it. The way that group is, where only the 5 teams is, it just makes things even more condensed, even more difficult. And then you add in, I don't want to keep harping on, but you have Mount Bellew, Maigh, who are going to top the group more than likely. That just condenses that down so tightly. And now you're looking at it where Dunmore, obviously, your goal is going to be so dangerous. They're going to be in big crowds. There's still a lot of talent there on that side. I know they'll be, they're going to be battling. Tuam, obviously, Michael's will never be as bad as again you would expect. They've shown over years, year in year out, they will consistently get results when they need to. And Claregalway are this, bit of firepower that they can, if they spark, they can be as good as anyone as well. So that group, I think, is probably going to be one of the most fascinating to watch, just because it's so condensed, and then the fact that you have so many teams there fighting, and you put in the caveat in as well. Excuse me, where the games are getting more difficult, they're getting more competitive, they're getting more the business end. It really is set up, and that's just going to be an absolute dogfight. And already there's teams that are kind of up against it there already. Great for the neutral, but not great when you're a team that's probably already eyeing the way they should be out, and they rightfully think they should be in the knockout stages and being highly competitive. But it just makes things competitive, but fascinating for us at the same time, I guess.
Yeah, that group as well. Montbellion on top spot, 4 points. Then you have Michael's on 2, along with Claregalway on 2, and then Tuam and Dunmore both haven't played 1 game apiece. Both sit on 0 points. Just as well this week on our team of the week, it was picked by James. So the team was as follows: Bernard Power, Conor Corcoran, Fionn Garvey, Liam Silk, Colin Sweeney, John Daly, Jason Riley, Pork Mannion, Keen Hernan, and Match Tierney, Owen Gallagher, Cuilinn O'Carroll, Mike Merton, Damien Comer, and Mike McGarrett. So that was the team of the week. There'll be a poll up as well for the player of the week this week. Just to go through some of the intermediate results as well at the weekend. So the results were as follows: Illanar 110, Killarane 1-6, Glenamady 1-8, Oncarrua 8 points, Neil Brannock's 112, Portland Shamrock 6 points, Monavea Abbey 115, Clifton 1-7, St Brendan's Ballygare 11 points, Williamstown 1-4, Kilconnelly 2-5, Kilcairn Clonberne 9 points, Caltra 110, Kerfin B 1-6, Ormore Mary 11, St Gabriel's 1-7. James, just to bring you in here, Monavea Abbey, your own club. A tough year for you last year to go down, but a good way for them anyways to get up and running this weekend. But is it safe to say the expectation is this year in Monavea it'll be a failure if you don't go straight back up?
Well, I think, we won intermediate back in 2016, and that was a great year. We went on the following year. We got to a senior semi-final. We carried our momentum all the way through. But since then, in those 5-6 years, I think we played 0 knockout championship games and around 8 or 9 relegation games. So, unfortunately, we probably proved that for those years we weren't at senior level, and we can have no complaints about where we're at the minute. What I will say is, there's an awful lot of talent in this Monavea group, and there's a good feel about it. There's a good feel about the group, and it's a good environment to be in. But this intermediate championship is absolutely dog eat dog. It's you have so many teams there that have real aspirations to go and win it. And you look at Glenamady, you look at, St Brendan's are going really well. Caltra are a young team with loads of energy, well coached by Niall Coyne there, managed by Gabriel Naughton. And Kilconnelly, obviously, where you have massive players like Niall Daly, Paul Mannion, it's never going to be as easy to say, Jesus, we should win it, or any team should win it. And I think from Barry Cullen's power rankings, sitting us at 4, I don't think too many will expect it. But it's a really, really exciting and a really competitive competition that it makes for great watching.
I can assure there's plenty of movement anyways in the power rankings this week at intermediate levels. There was a few Caltra people that weren't happy with the position over the weekend. But Jonathan, any team standing out from you in the open round at intermediate championship?
Maybe we might have to get PJ on the phone to Porrick Mannion and see can we get him to switch codes. By all accounts, he was exceptional for them. Great to see Sean Mulcairn's back in action as well. We talked about Mike Daly being away for so long. you know, we all remember that evening up in the Whitehall, where in Sigerson action, where he's left like a dog out, and I won't say what, when there's no medical around him, players having to pile on jackets and whatnot. Such a sad an ugly side of the game that should never happen. But he's been away for so long. Such a nasty injury, such a long phase to come back of so many steps along the way. But so great to see him back. I know Warwick, to be fair to him, kept him involved in the squad, which was great. But I'm sure he's delighted to be eventually back out on the pitch properly. And hopefully he'll be back in Maroon next year. Mark Ronaldson as well. Maybe you talk about blowings with Mark Cuilinn, but he certainly, by all accounts, was flying it for O'More as well, and he's going to be very hard marked at that. Such a talented player. I remember him when he was coming through the ranks as a youngster, such an insanely talented footballer, and he looks like he's never lost it. But I think, you know, you touched on it there. It's such a dogfight, and you know, I could say the championship in England, everyone thinks they should go back up again straight away, but look how long it took them more to get back up, how many scares they had along the way, how many wobbles that they had along the way. But like, you look at the teams there straight away, if you glance at the groups like Brendan's, Glenamaddy, Carrua, Williamstown, Punavay, Caltra, maybe Curfin, Western, Clifton, Neil Brannock's, Kilconnelly, Kilkerran, Clonberne, who still Cartoon, Ormore, Ireland, Killare and Gables. Like, there's so many teams there that are maybe, you know, talk about Barry and he's joking about his power rankings, but there's so many teams there that are like on their day can beat anyone. That is a real slog, and the fact that it's still, you know, even its way out with the 2 up, 1 down, or the 2 down, 1 up mentality, where you're coming through to even things off. It just makes it so more competitive. But that is a dogfight. That it really is a dogfight, and there'll be a good bit of scalping between now and the end of that championship. So many teams can realistically say they've a good opportunity of going all the way, but they'll certainly earn it.
Did Brannock, James, probably put in one of the performances of the weekend? Like, just looking at the team you did pick, you had 2 forwards in there from Brannock's. Definitely do always seem like they have the squad, but particularly a few of the younger players now coming through, it seemed like they put in the performance at the weekend at the Intermediate Championship.
Yeah, like, look, 112 to 6 points is a big win, and especially over a solid team like Cartoon. Like, they have such massive experience in the likes of Fintan O'Curreen and Sean Denver there. You know, some really good, solid players, and now you're adding in these young players, likes of the 220s from this year, Cuilinn O'Cureen and Mike McCarroll. And like, Cuilinn kicked 5 points the last day against Cartoon, and by all accounts they were sensational scores. And I was very impressed with him, you know, in the under 20 championship, and you know, now he saw that we've seen that good form bringing him into a Galway senior panel, and you don't get there, and you don't get game time against Armagh up in Park Sean without being really, really, really good footballer. And he's continuing that, and he's showing that. And you know, Mike popping in there with 1-3, 1-8 out of the 112 coming from 2 under 20s is massive, and it takes the pressure off the likes of Fintan and Sean, who would have been expected to carry Micheál Brannocks for the past few years. And I think now they're in a really good place to go and push on and, you know, really make a dent in this Intermediate Championship, which they'll want to be doing.
Yeah, so that was all the action in round 1 of the Intermediate Championship. Round 2 now coming up next week, which is hell a lot in these Intermediate Championship groups, and the groups are beginning to take shape. But obviously there's 3 coming out with the preliminary quarterfinals as well this year. But that's all we do have time for on our podcast for this week. Thanks a million to the lads for jumping on.